we are talking about the exciting world of AI because before, when you and I were chatting, talking about how AI, instructional design, our worlds are colliding, and it feels like that's all we can talk about nowadays because it's exciting, it's new, it's different. Like this is just something that we're all constantly thinking about. I'm curious, what was your first introduction to AI and all of this madness?
My first introduction. I don't know the very first thing I've seen, but I guess I sensed some buzz about it, or I was like this, maybe seeing videos on my YouTube homepage of AI tools that are coming out, maybe other designers posting about AI. So I was like, I need to dive into this and figure out how, what tools are out there that we can use as instructional designers. Like, how is this going to impact our field? I mean, this was maybe at the end of 2022. So I was doing research for a YouTube video. I was like, I'll do a YouTube video, top 5 AI tools for instructional designers. I checked out maybe 20 different ones. And the first time I used like Jasper, for example, and used some of their like creative story generators and stuff like that, I was just like blown away. I like called my wife. I was like, you have to come see this. Come look at this. Like, I cannot believe this.
Yeah.
And this was like before I had ever seen ChatGPT. So that wasn't even on that like list of tools. But Jasper was like probably the closest thing, and I was just like, this is unreal. Oh, and then Dolly too. Like that was probably the first thing I saw where I was like, okay, wow, this is gonna change things up a bit. It's creating images from scratch. So that's probably where I started, and then branched out from there. But yeah, I thought it was magic. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and that's what it kind of feels like with everything for AI, and that's why I know so many people are just like wondering, what is this? Because they're like, it is magical. You type in a phrase and you get an answer. It's like, whoa, it's data. Like it's really what it is, data generation. Like it's nothing magical, but it definitely does feel that way. And it's so interesting because, and I'm glad you were thinking about it from a perspective about instructional design and AI, because I kind of feel embarrassed to say this, but I was designing AI programs at MIT with my colleagues, and the whole time I was like, oh wow, like AI, this is so interesting. But I'd never thought about it from an instructional design perspective. I was always thinking about it from what they were teaching about because they had their own lens on things.
Oh, right.
And then, of course, once everything actually does kind of explode, it's like, oh, yeah, I can connect the dots here. There's clearly something that we should be paying attention to. And when this all did come about, I kind of went through some different phases about things. At first, I kind of dismissed it, saying like, maybe it's, I don't know. Some of the things I was reading about too from people also were very much so about saying how AI is like evil. Because there seems to be 3 camps with these things about evil. People think that it's either evil, it's demonizing it, how dare you, plagiarism, all this kind of stuff. Then those on the opposite side who are the early adopters of technology, and those who are like cautiously optimistic about maybe this is going to be a good thing, but maybe I'll wait and I'll see kind of how this plays out. So were you more about the early adopter reaction of like, let me dive on into this, or were you kind of like, let's maybe not?
I would say maybe on the cusp, like right between early adopter and like slightly cautious. I think that middle ground is probably a safe space to be. But yeah, I think after like months of seeing, just watching AI content and learning about these different tools, like my excitement was gradually building and building and building. And then when I could like fully visualize how it was going to impact people in our field, and I realized I'm like, wow, if there is an instructional designer today who had a tool that like leveraged this technology, but like particularly, specialized for instructional design, if they were like on an instructional design team and they were the only ones with access to that tool, everyone would be like, what are you doing? How are you working at this speed? Like, yeah, we have like a magician on the team. So I realized that I'm like, a tool like this or a group of tools like this, it's really going to change what an instructional designer is capable of. And that is going to be valuable, and there's no like stopping that or slowing that down. So I think there's there's valid reasons to be afraid, like from the copyright perspective, and maybe even more doomsday, like AI is gonna kill us all, human
Sure.
2.0 or something.
Yeah.
But I also think with how much time AI is saving people and how much money it's saving people, like it's happening. Like we can be upset about it, but like companies are going to be using it and getting on board with it because it does massively change like how productive people can be and what one person is capable of.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't until, funny enough, it was probably in December when I really took like this full deep dive into the chat GPT world, because a friend of mine who was constantly pinging me about why was I not using it yet. And he kept on saying, he's like, why aren't you doing this? And he would send me articles, and I'm like, I mean, maybe I don't know. And then finally, when he was just like, look at the learning objectives that I just created in 3 seconds. It's like, what do you mean you create learning objectives in 3 seconds? And then that's when he was like, you should just use ChatGPT. Humor me, use it. And then sure enough, and of course, while they weren't perfect by any means, that's what started me down this rabbit hole of like, oh, okay, all right, now I'm starting to see it, and that's like, aha. What was your first reaction to ChatGPT? We're obviously talking about AI broadly speaking, but ChatGPT is the one that everyone knows right now. What was your first reaction to it?
I feel like I learned about ChatGPT like a few days after I had posted that first video of like top 5 AI tools for IDs. Like a few days later, I started seeing ChatGPT everywhere, and I'm like, what is this? Why is it? It sounds weird. It sounds like something like super technical. But eventually, I watched the video or like went on it and just played around. And at first, I was like, wow, this is surprisingly easy to get access to. But once I started giving it requests and seeing what it came up with, it was a similar thing. I was like, no way. I like called my wife. I was like, you have to look at this. Or I like generated a text to my wife to like invite her up to where I was like with ChatGPT. But yeah, it was a similar thing. I was like, we're in a new era now of technology and what's going to be possible here. Like there isn't any going back.
No.
So that was my reaction. I was like, this is insane. Where is this going to be in 3 months, 6 months, a year?
I mean, and the first thing that I did too, like after all of that, was that, like you, I asked it to be able to craft up a response back to my buddy. To be like, and hey, by the way, can you write to my friend and tell him about now I'm finally using ChatGPT? And sure enough, it's like, you got it. It's like,
I mean, to be fair, when I sent that to my wife was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you talking like this? Like, it definitely didn't sound like me. And it was like kind of weird, like sending a formal text like that. But it was still cool just seeing this generating this stuff from seemingly thin air.
I mean, and that has been the one thing that's been really interesting that I've been liking more of Google Bard specifically. Yeah, because we can need to obviously compare and contrast the two. But with Google Bard, whenever I upload something, to be able to say, learn my writing style, and then it points about how I have like these, like there's apparently 5 types of themes that I always use for writing, apparently, as what AI tells me. And I'm like, interesting. Right. So then I say, cool, learn my writing style. And then using my writing presence, I then want you to write X for me, and it's like, you got it. And then it actually gives it to me, and I'm looking at it and like, it's pretty darn believable. Like it sounds like me. Like yeah. So